All right, so to get started, we'll do a round of introductions. We'll go one by one, and then we'd love to get to know each of you and learn more about your perspectives on this panel of investing in interoperability.
Hello, everyone. My name is YK. I'm part of the investment team at Hash. Nice to meet you all.
Hello guys, I'm Youbin. I'm founder of Nonce Classic. Nonce Classic is having been born out of the largest Web3 hacker house based in Seoul. We are backed by builders and many angels. And our portfolio companies include YC, Alumni, A16G Crypto Soul, and many others very influential crypto teams. Yeah, that's it.
So hi everyone. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Clement. I'm the co-founder and GP at Interop Ventures. Interop Ventures is an early stage VC fund. We're just launching actually. We'll start deploying on 1st of July. We already signed for our investments. So we're focusing on investing in interchain protocols. Which really align with the interchain thesis since the beginning, and we have been in the space for quite a long right now. And we also organize Nebula Summit, which is what we call an Interchain Builders Conference, or IBC, just after ETC in Paris. So in case you're coming to ETC, come to Nebula Summit. It's going to be on the 24th and 25th of July in Paris, really focusing on Interchain. We also host a podcast called The Interop, and I'm also the founder of a French community of builders called The Arch. So if you want to know more, happy to. How about you?
Great. I guess we'll start off high level. What attracted you to the Cosmos ecosystem? And we don't have to go one by one, everybody. If you feel especially, inclined to answer the question, please.
Yeah, let me just start first. I think the representative of attractiveness of Cosmos is definitely it is designed for app chain specific chain. So it doesn't every value doesn't go to just the protocol like a fat protocol thesis, but I think that it's a value accrue to apps which just are facing the users. I think that's the destinations of our blockchain, I believe. And for Cosmos, it provides its tool for building the Cosmos app chain for free. I really love that kind of tools, and it seems like not top down a building, but just a bottom up buildings based on a community levels. So that's the good thing. And moreover, I think every blockchain could customize their own specific details. They can have their own validators, and that's why Cosmos could have mesh network, mesh security, which is not the same as a shared security in the center in Ethereum. And that kind of a union makes the I think diversity and the more strength security in Cosmos ecosystem, I believe. So I think those are two things, I believe.
Yeah, I would like to emphasize the flexibility part that Youbin just mentioned. I really like Cosmos in the fact that it is customizable and also upgradable. So I mean, for those who know me, I say this a lot, but I believe that there will be no one-size-fits-all solution for the blitz scaling use cases of crypto. So there needs to be different any scalability approaches, any tech stacks have different trade-offs. And I believe that the modular, the flexible Cosmos stack allows each app chains to customize and adapt the tech stack according to their needs. And I think that is a huge kind of benefit of the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah, fully agree. It's always difficult to be the third one, but happy to be the third one to speak about that subject. So we're just launching the fund, so we wrote a quite heavy thesis on the different verticals we were interested by. And at the end of the day, we're okay, so we like open finance, we like liquid staking derivatives, all the things like DAO tooling, etc. But why specifically on Cosmos? Why specifically in duty chain? And at the end of the day, I think it's definitely the Cosmos tech stack, meaning the Cosmos SDK, the Cosmos WASM, and IBC. And I think the tech stack is, as we said, aligns with the vision we have on how you said application will scale. So not with probably the fat protocol chases, but more with like value accrued from actually the chains. And so we are really aligned with the vision of interoperable, sovereign, modular blockchains. And so, yeah, we think it's the real vision we want to invest in, and the tech stack we're interested by. And I think IBC will probably talk about it later, but will trigger also like liquidity and many more exchanges, and is going to be have a strong presence and usage way beyond the Cosmos on the environment.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely agree. Just to say from like a project perspective, that's why we also chose Cosmos. But on this, I think each panelist has mentioned IBC, the tech stack and whatnot. Let's take a step back instead of just talking about how great Cosmos is. Let's think more like at a high level when you look at the larger industry. Not everybody knows what IBC is. There's plenty of other interoperability solutions. As investors, you tend to look, as wide as you can. How do you think of interoperability as at a high level, and what do you think of like other solutions on the market and how IBC compares?
I think the interesting point of IBC is that it has become like an ecosystem standard for Cosmos. And I think that is something that is definitely not visible in other ecosystems. So if you look at the Uniswap scandal, I would say, so there are clashes between whether to use Wormhole or Layer 0 to expand into the BNB. And I think the fact that there were controversies in how different stakeholders reacted to the optimal solution for the ecosystem, I think shows how difficult it is to standardize how to standardize like general message passing and also token bridging. So I think the fact that Cosmos has achieved that through IBC, although it took longer than expected, the fact that they had shipped the IBC and the fact that it worked seamlessly, and the fact that it hasn't had too much of a problem while being live for around 3 years, I think that shows how standardization can be impactful for the ecosystem growth.
For my understanding, I think to see the landscape of interoperability, I think there are 3 segments we can categorize. One is protocol to protocol, like asset transition or message transfer. Second one is a protocol to app chain. Maybe I can send my BTC to Uniswap or Osmosis. And the last part one is app chain to app chain. I think currently we have developed the bi-second pace as well. However, app chain to app chain pace, I think we are still delayed. I think I just heard that Squid, the protocol, they try to transfer the assets cross-chain, even to the Osmosis or other app chains. But yeah, it should be developed more and more because we are, thinking about app chain futures, and that's my just thinking about the categories of interoperability. Yeah, I just finished. Yeah.
All right. I think most of the things we'll probably say, but I think first, it's really on the tech perspective, the trust minimized assumptions, and we already spoke a bit about the bridges. The bridges, it's we know it's between in 222, it's around 2 to 3 billion scams, but in percentage, I think the percentage number is more important. It's around 70% of every act. So it's significantly the way where people act. So, but we'll probably have a question on the bridges after. But from a tech perspective, so I think the trust minimizer is something we like. Specifically, as investors, we're looking more at project building on open source, standards, and I think IBC is definitely going to be a standard. So my second point will be the adoption. I'm talking, like we're really focusing on interchain. I always try to put 20% of my time to meet the other ecosystems. We were, for instance, at the Avalanche Summit. You know that Nonce is building Clement to talk to Cosmos. And there are many solutions that are being built. And when I talk to other ecosystem, I'm always surprised that people become really more aware about IBC. I even talked to a French blockchain called Massa last week, and they were like, yeah, we try to be IBC enabled. And I was like, do you know the existence of IBC?
Yeah, I just want to add of your points more. So, the current and existing the solutions for interoperability in EVM, they use as a bridge, but most of the bridges are very centralized. Only a sole validators exist, and that a kinds of increase the risk. And many token holders worry about cross chain or breaching their assets to other chain. Compared with that kinds of breaching solution, I think Cosmos with the IBC solution and a shared validators, a security with kinds of XLR, I think it's more safer for interoperability. I think that's the pace of I understand about interoperability landscape.
Yeah, definitely. I guess to pivot a little bit, right? In current events with recent news, there's a lot of regulatory concerns going on in the US with Coinbase and Binance. At the same time, you're seeing countries like Hong Kong, Japan, and several other countries create established frameworks, not waiting for the US to set a precedent. I guess from your experience, whether in your own home country or as you've traveled to other conferences, how are you seeing different countries react? What are your observations? What are you excited about when it comes to defining how we work in the legal, stay compliant to the legal realms?
Recently when I met many project founders, I've been in just Japan in Tokyo, and lots of founders in DeFi, they just have to move to other country like Singapore or UAE because the tax is really too high in Japan, and it might be illegal to running the DeFi project in Japan. So, but Japan, I think they just showed they wanted to start to open in NFT parts and others. Yeah, just with the very conservative attitude, but it's really remarkable pace that they start to open their regulations. One by one.
Yeah, I think it's a very complex question in that there are no clear distinctions between them. It's more of a spectrum. So I personally categorize the regulations into three buckets. There are the big brothers, like the U.S., and then there are the more the progressive side, I would say some parts of the EU and in Southeast Asia, etc. And there are the procrastinators, like Korea. So I think if we have these three buckets, I personally think that the procrastinators have an edge as long as they promise they don't have punitive measures, and that they could see the trial and error of other countries. I think U.S. is the testing bed for the Big Brother side. They're trying to have full control of all on and off ramps and every on-chain activities, which I believe will not be sustainable. And Korea, for instance, is one of the procrastinators. They are banning more the aggressive on-chain activities, but at the same time they're just surveilling the off-ramp efforts from personal assets, etc. So I believe that the procrastinators will be the winners when it comes to becoming a crypto hub. I think many regions such as Singapore, Southeast Asia, and Korea comes into that bucket. But I think as crypto becomes more mature, more sides will look at each other's trial and error and kind of adapt accordingly.
Maybe I will talk a bit about Europe. I think even before talking about Europe, generally what happens is you have a new technology, you have builders then, and you have users. And you start to regulate when you have enough users and it requires the regulation, or at least like authorities are having a look at what happens there. I think most of the builders are actually based out of like America or Asia, but probably less in Europe. Even if in Eastern European country we have developers, I think in Europe not enough compared to Asia or America. But what happened is like we had quite, I won't say comprehensive, but we have really talks and discussion with the regulators in France and in Europe. There is like the ADAN, which is the French association, like supporting the adoption of digital assets. They did an incredible job to like in these talks with like French and European regulators, which like was the MiCA regulation, and the MiCA regulation was really long talks and discussions. And one good example of their success is DeFi is not into this regulation. It's going to be a dedicated framework, which we think it's a good way to approach because it's different to see asset managers or to see people investing in the space or the VCs or the builders. And DeFi is quite a different space, like it's liquid trading, it's not the same players, so it's a different way to regulate. So I think we have these talks in France. We are in a good way to attract people, and now we saw that because Binance, Crypto.com, many huge worldwide players decided to have all their global or their European headquarters based out of Paris, which I think is a really good sign of trust and the willingness to build long-term like presence and relationship and hire people there. So I think we'll have more and more dynamic. From like personal perspective, I saw in France how the last bull run brought many people and many more builders. So I think in terms of like, sorry, I'm just like speaking about the builder side. Let's say there are more people building stuffs. I think the last 3 years were more about trying small projects, but I think the coming years we'll see maybe more big projects coming out of Europe. So there's quite a good dynamic going on, thanks to the ADAN and the local regulators that really listen to us. And if you compare to the US, I think now we see the last news in like recent and the last days, recent news. I remember this sentence from Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase 2 years ago, was SEC. We'll all talk to SEC to regulate, or it's going to be like a legal fight on the court, and he said the best way is not to regulate by the fight, but to regulate and have like frank talks. And I think maybe the SEC is like taking the second option, unfortunately, for the US.
Yeah, and a short little plug. Clement's also hosting Nebular Summit next month in Paris, and we've also observed France, Korea, Singapore, Japan. They're all attracting a lot of teams, projects, developers, founders. So, yeah. I guess moving on from there, with all the notorious bridge hacks over the past couple of years, with like Wormhole, Poly Network, Ronin, Nomad, etc., how do you assess when you're investing in the Interop sector? What are the biggest challenges that you think need to be addressed, and generally, with that context, like, how do you as an investor and a firm look at interoperability?
I think I'll have the most contentious perspective on this, and to be clear, it's not Hash's perspective, it's my perspective. Anyways, I believe that it will be inevitable for most bridges to be hacked. So if you look at the bridges, their code might be secure right now, but they inevitably, in order to compete with other ecosystems and other kind of bridge services, they would have to upgrade their code. And I think most vulnerabilities come from there. That was the case for Wormhole, that was the case for Nomad, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think all bridges, in some time in their life cycle, will get hacked. But I think the important point will be how can they respond to that. And I think there are many interesting experiments going on, such as like Stride is working on a circuit breaker also along with Osmosis, and there are other like similar kind of circuit breaker kind of functions that are being done by other bridges as well. But I think those kind of like what to do when we get hacked will be like a major kind of major aspect that people will look into when they look at bridging solutions, and that's the case for me as well. And moving on from the bridges, I think there will also be bridge-less solutions. So I'm very interested in the usage of ZK proofs, and there's a team called Herodotus who's building storage proofs, who allow within the Ethereum ecosystem to see from L1 to see L2 states synchronously. So they don't have to have like these kind of communications, but they have instant proof that, for instance, if a user has asset in the layer one, they could that is fully visible from the layer two. So the smart contracts can leverage that. So I think those kind of bridge-less solutions are very interesting as well. So that's what I'm looking into as well.
From my side, I think as we just focus on like early stage deals and invest like in seed round or pre-seed round, if our portfolio start to worry about bridge solutions, then we might achieve already great success because they have grown a lot and there are many like solutions which could be recommendable by others. But I think one thing, the important one is that they should get like auditing. I think it's not the ultimate solutions for every project, but that's the minimum. I think they should get auditing from third party, which is very trustful, and not by only one, but for many others. And yeah, we when we just decide before like deciding our investments, we thoroughly just check whether they have very technical guy who could just understand every like a security or every their like a risk in the breach. If not, then yeah, they are just 100% exposed to the risk. So I think believing on the founder and just DD on the founder is really important for preventing the risk.
Maybe I will just take a step back. Why do we have bridges? Well, bridges because many people want to transfer assets or send messages to other chains. And I think this is really good. Like this really strong need of like interoperability communications. By the way, our fund is called Interop. And so yeah, we think it's extremely important and this is required. Now we have like, why do people want to communicate, send messages? I think the first use cases, number of amount right now, number of transactions is DeFi. Probably tomorrow it's going to be more different things, but like nowadays DeFi. And so then what are the solutions? So there was like a problem, there's like a need. The solutions like this wide range. We have 4 categories of different bridges. It's like more trust minimized. I don't like the term trustless, but maybe trust minimized or fully centralized multi-sig kind of bridge. Then yeah, we have the option, do we want to trust someone or an organization? And we have 2 different type of acts, or is social engineering. So you're talking to someone and try to get access to keys and then you hack. Or is with like economic incentives and you wait on the decision of a consensus to hack basically the bridge. So to me, like this is just a fact, description. Then as an investor, what are we like? The question like, how do you manage these risks? So I think there's an opportunity for great solutions to emerge, and I think IBC is probably it's becoming part of the solution. And after there will be like I think the midterm I will say things we'll see is the cross-chain MEV and how we will have a really kind of multi-chain future. So I don't see that as a risk because I think also like if we see the bridge hacks like 2023, like beginning of 2023 compared to beginning of 2022, there are really less bridge hacks, but the volumes are also smarter. Say. It requires more in-depth analysis, but I think people really understand now how risky is it and probably take more care. And the balance between I want to go fast and I don't really manage my security is maybe way like people are more taking care, more doing their own due diligence before sending assets. So that's one thing, and that I think will support the adoption of real strong standards, battle-tested standards. Because I think in this industry, what is important is battle-tested things. It's not really about the theoretical, but it's really more about the empirical.
Yeah, I think I've asked a lot of questions about the challenges and like maybe skewed a little bit too negative. So I kind of want to flip back. What are you most excited about in interoperability? What do you think is on the horizon over the next few years? Like, what do you think it's going to enable? Let's try to see about a more positive note.
I would say I'm positive because we're doing a very bad job in UX. So we have done excellent in regards to the technical ingredients. I mean, we have everything like available now, right? We have like interchain accounts coming up, interchain security. We're going through our first iteration. We're doing everything. We're making everything possible, but the UX part is honestly terrible, right? Even advanced users, I would say I use a lot of DeFi protocols, but using bridges and using interoperable solutions is still very confusing for me. So I think the fact that we're doing so terrible in the UX, I think is an opportunity, since if we just take care of that UX part, if we make that more accessible for the masses and more accessible for people in the other ecosystems, I think it's just up only, right? It can only get bigger since we have done this much with this bad user experience. So that will be my bullish point.
Yeah, I totally agree with his opinion. I think it will be really good for mass adoptions because users, in the end, they don't mind about which chains I need to use. If they just launch the app and if they start with the ETH, then they can also trade with the Cosmos asset. If they start with the Atom, but still they can use ETH apps. I think that features could be realized with the interoperability features, I believe, and that will bring more and more users to Web3 worlds. That's really essential, I believe. I think, and yeah, technically, if it like accelerates to combine like every like liquidity from other like DEXs or in DeFi sectors, I think even though initial projects need like a minimum amount of liquidity, the kinds of requirements could be like decreased. That means it's easy to start for the builder aspect. It's easy to start to try a new like experiments by using other chains liquidity, and that might I think accelerate more and more better new products in our Web3 worlds.
In terms of developments, I think there will be two types of there will be open source standards that like the Linux kernel. I was like low level tech stacks that is being forked many times. And like if we think about Linux kernel, how it's used, we use it in our daily life. It's really the low level stack. And I think IBC and the Cosmos SDK will be like this kind of like low level stack, probably forked many times. And then we'll have two types of products. We'll have product building on top of it, and we'll have companies projects built on top of that using really whose SDKs and this part of code, forking it, and you will have more packaged products with kind of, I don't know, proprietary code or even if it's not really proprietary, but more really packaged stuff. And this is the way I see like the two main trends. We're more interested by the one using like the lot of the code and being more as investors. Then the interoperability. So I think they will, to me, in the midterm, the way I see them, it's like will be triggered also by the interchain accounts or by the abstraction you will be able to have when you interact with blockchains. And you will do more and more, and it's on the IBC, I would say, roadmap. I think is currently being developed. The way that you can send information from one block and then a second operation happen and then a couple. And I think from like this part of the operation you can do, and if you had like a good level of UX and kind of a kind of abstraction on top, it can bring a lot of like adoption. So this is what I'm really excited by, to be honest. And in the middle of that, you will have like how you optimize MEV to have like agents that's like have like a good usage basically that can optimize their own MEV. I think about also the intents. So how you can accept or just sending a transaction, ask for specific things, and then create a market of people that provide your specific requests.
No, I definitely appreciate all these insights and totally agree when it comes to like how remarkable it is, how much usage we have right now when the UX is so immature. I think a lot of people, and we're actually guilty of it as well, we compare IBC to TCP/IP. But after hearing this conversation, it makes me realize like maybe IBC is more like dial-up. And in 10, 20 years, we'll have a more advanced version of IBC that will be like TCP/IP. And I think that it's just an indication of how early we are in not just the blockchain industry, but also in terms of networking within the blockchain industry. So, I think we're approaching time. I wanted to open it up for questions, not only from the audience, also from the panelists. I think we have a lot of interesting people up on stage. But yes, anybody from the audience, questions about investing in interoperability for our esteemed guests? All right. Do you guys have any questions for each other?
Happy to meet in ETC. Happy to meet in ETC or at Nebula Summit if you're around.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, we have a question. And we don't have a mic runner. I'll do it.
Sorry, I was in a meeting, so I missed a. Maybe you guys might have covered this earlier, but I was just curious. You're talking about you have a lot of. You guys get to see a lot of like deals as well as like projects that are being built out generally around the generic ecosystem. And I know today's IBC Summit, we're talking mostly about the Cosmos ecosystem, but I'm curious. Are there any other ecosystems outside of Cosmos that is really focused on interoperability? So I was just curious about your takes on that.
2 days ago, I just met like a Polkadot project guys, and they also, emphasize the interoperability. Like before, they are always like compared with the Cosmos ecosystem, and that project name was A-Star Network. And what they wanted to do is, it just wanted to realize the cross-chain transfer of the assets, and then what Cosmos ecosystem wanted to realize. But the thing is just for me, it seems like kinds of Excel. They have their own validators and shared security with the POS, but it's kind of being a portal or hub for cross-chain a breach. So I think and A-Star Network is like a kind of number one project in Polkadot ecosystem. I believe the size and the backers, or when you see the companies they are work with. So for example, like Toyota, they just built their DAO on top of the A-Star Network. So these kinds of movements. And they're also they're a trial to the go-to-market strategy is just targeting just the business, like the companies. So if they acquire each very representative companies, then the users of the company could just use the A-Star network. So in my opinion, there are many trials of achieving the interoperability in each chain, like Avalanche or Cosmos or Polkadot. The thing is, it's not the better in retail customers or just existing users, but who could possible to achieve the business users like Nike or Starbucks or I think that's the key. Who win this like interoperability war? That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'll go with the easy answer because since the EVM ecosystem is definitely experimenting with a lot of inter-layer 2 communication. I think they probably have like all solutions for all kind of imaginable trade-offs. So whether it be like a trustless or trusted or like hybrid, and they are also like experimenting with bridgeless solutions like the ones that I talked about, like errata storage proofs, and also I think the well, yeah, there are a lot of personal opinions here, but I think like the first use case of eigenlayer, of ETH restaking will be coming from bridges. And I personally believe that Cosmos would have been an inspiration for the eigenlayers folks because it's very similar with interchain security. But so like with all those like getting all that together, I think EVM probably has the most active experiments for interoperability.
Maybe just we have many terms in this industry, unfortunately, and sometimes it's difficult to define precisely what does it mean interoperability. And as we are more in the interchain, we think about horizontal communications, interoperability between like sovereign modular blockchains. But actually, like the issue we had is like we need to scale. Okay, we need to scale what transactions. Okay, so. There's like I think the two big narratives like in the global blockchain space in general is like the vertical scalability and the horizontal scalability. So we are addressing the issue right now like by speaking about IBC and horizontal way of like communication between different blockchains. But I think soon we will really have this conversation of how we will also communicate vertically. And when the modularization of the tech stack and we move from really monolithic blockchain to really modular with Celestia, Fuel, all these kind of projects, I don't want to go into details. Some of them are difficulties or it's tough environment. But I think we will move then, and we will also need to have standards to communicate between all those blocks. And I think it's also about interoperability in a large way. Now, to be more precise on the question, like, is it like other ecosystems? I think everyone is looking at interoperability with just one aspect because vertical or horizontal, like Polkadot, which had at the beginning close vision to Cosmos, that about how you can scale. And if you take an even like bigger step and you think about it, probably good promising ecosystem, Ethereum and Cosmos. The end game is almost the same. We read a couple things on that. I think all of us. So there's one way. Is the security at the beginning or maybe a bit later? And will you do like if Ethereum does really sharding at the end of the day? It's kind of the game. So and it will be all about how you can communicate and how you really build proper strong standards.
Great. Thank you so much for your question. I think we can wrap it up here and we can move on to the next presentation. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.
Thank you all. Thank you.